school. It shut down in the early 1900s, so I'm meeting her at the Ursuline Convent, where the school's archives are held. How was the Couvent School founded?
Free people of color in New Orleans were actually very committed to education in the antebellum period. And one woman in particular, a wealthy free woman of color named Marie Couvent, left money and property in her will for the establishment of a school for free children of color who were poor or orphans.
Molly says when the Couvent School opened in 1848, it was the first of its kind, providing an education for Creoles of color, both orphans and children from wealthy families.
There was no tuition if you couldn't afford to pay, but if you could afford to pay, you would pay a certain amount of tuition. You had French-speaking children, English-speaking children, girls, boys, Catholics, non-Catholics. They were educated in French and in English, and there seems to have been an emphasis on writing, composition, the literary arts.
I tell Molly about our manuscript. She explains that Armand Lanus, the editor of the collection Les Senelles, in which so many of our poems appear, was also the longtime principal at the Couvent School.
Armand Lanus was committed really to the ideals of the revolutionary era, to notions of political equality, things that weren't available to them as free people of color before the Civil War.
Molly thinks our manuscript could be a copybook from the school, used to practice good spelling and penmanship.
There seem to be some corrections in some places. A teacher might have made those corrections. But here, you see some doodling in the margins, little flowers. The younger sibling could have gotten a hold of it.
Now, here on page 5 is very faintly Duplessis, and later on there's Croissant. How can I find out if they were students at the Couvent School?
Well, students who were being considered for admission into the school would sometimes appear in the minutes of the board of directors. So we might try there first. Here are some of the record books from the school. So we can start going through these.
Okay, I'll take the top two. The school minutes span some 30 years between 1850 and 1880. Unfortunately, there's no index. It seems like we've been searching for hours when Molly comes across a lead.
I think I found something. Here's a Duplessis. His name was Sylvain. He was 9 years old. His mother was petitioning for his admission to the Couvent School in 1857.
The boy's name is very close, but the name in Charlie's manuscript is female, Sylvanie Duplessis. I'm checking some online census records to see if I can figure this out. This is intriguing. I may be onto something. Back with Charlie, I tell him his manuscript includes 19th century Romantic era poems, first published in Les Senelles, and other poems which could have gotten the person who copied them in a lot of trouble.
There's chills going up and down my spine.
I tell Charlie we'd found a 9-year-old boy in the school records whose name was almost identical to the girl in his manuscript.
I was really frustrated. The name was so close to Sylvanie, but not the same. And then I discovered a census record from 1850.
A Duplessis family with 2 children, Sylvain and Sylvanie, a brother and sister 2 years apart. If it's a coincidence, it's a good one.
That may well be the Sylvanie Duplessis who wrote her name in your manuscript.
That's terrific.
It's also possible that the two of them both wrote in this book, because children would often share these books. Paper was expensive, and they would work closely together.
I'm impressed, very impressed with this.
Charlie's family heirloom is almost certainly a rare copybook from the historic Couvent School, showing the range of literature and radical ideas taught to the students.
This is altogether different from what I expected. I expected it to be just some poems and stuff somebody copied out of a French book. And it turns out it's much more important than that, much more real. I can imagine that the discussions in class you can only wonder about, which they could not have outside the class with anybody else. How could they establish such a school at that time?
We can't be sure how this Duplessis family is related to Charlie's family. But since he knows his New Orleans Duplessis ancestors were Creoles of color, there's a strong likelihood they too were connected to the Couvent School.
So what do you think you'll do with this manuscript now?
I think I know what's going to happen. My brother will be very excited about this. He's talked about donating it to the university down in New Orleans, but I think we have to look into it more.
The Couvent School continued to educate its students, nurturing their literary and radical instincts. After the Civil War, Couvent School teachers and alumni were chiefly responsible for integrating the New Orleans public school system from 1871 to 1874. Rudolph Bédoun, brother of Couvent School graduate and radical poet Pierre Bédoun, served on a committee to protest laws that segregated railroad cars. Bédoun's group asked Homer Plessy, a Creole of color who was 7/8 white, to sit in a whites-only railroad car. Plessy's subsequent arrest led to the 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson Supreme Court case, which established separate but equal public facilities for blacks and whites. The Francophone community of New Orleans that gave birth to Les Senelles and the Couvent School slowly dispersed, with many Creoles of color moving to Cuba, Haiti, France, and large American cities like New York and Chicago. Besieged by financial woes, the Couvent School finally shut down in 1915 after it was badly damaged in a hurricane.
Want to do some detective work yourself? Go to History Detectives on the web at pbs.org. Discover how to get access to military archives or fill in your family tree with do-it-yourself guides and checklists. Learn how to collect and preserve evidence with tested archival techniques. You can also follow up on your favorite stories from the TV broadcast with related features, video archives, and transcripts. And while you're here, let us know how we're doing, or submit your own mystery and get the History Detectives on the case. It's all at History Detectives on the web at pbs.org.
History Detectives will return in a moment, but first,